Hello, friends, and welcome to the Friendly Show. I am your host and friend, Lee. And I want to give a special hello to anybody that is watching over on First Day Pod. You are in the right place. Mike is not with me today because we're not streaming for the First Day Pod. We're actually doing the Friendly Show, but I wanted to stream it over there as well. You can stay tuned. We are going to be doing another show next week, Mike and I, for the First Day Pod. So hello, everybody. It is Wednesday night. Does this week just fly by or what? I can't get over it. This is always my favorite show because this is where we get to kind of just gather together as if we're in my living room and talk about whatever comes up. And at the end of the show last week, I said, "So, what do you guys want to talk about next week?" And without a beat, like missing a beat, it was depression. Can we please talk about depression? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm really hoping that you are going to be active as you usually are every week, because that is where that's where the gold comes from. It comes from your experiences. So I want to know what your experience is. And if you have questions, I may not have the answer, but somebody else that's listening may. Or it might be something that we can look together for a future episode to get those answers or those questions answered. I do want to give the kind of disclaimer that I do every show, and I'm going to put it right out there in the front of this one because I know that this is a topic that I feel like we're all affected by. And we're looking for answers, and there's so many studies out right now, and thank God that they are really trying to find um, just help and relief for depression. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But I do want to let you know I am not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional in any means. I'm simply your friend and just wanting to. The whole premise of this podcast is to just give opportunity for us to be able to have these conversations. And I'll tell you, when this came up that we were going to talk about depression, part of me was like, "Oh my gosh, I am not suited to talk about this, and I don't want people to come here looking for answers, and if I can't give them answers or if they take the information and it doesn't help them," and all these things are going through my mind. And then I realized that is the reason why people are not talking about this. There's shame around it. And then people are afraid of going on a public platform talking about these types of conversations. Um, because will they be held accountable? And from my knowledge, just by me saying that I am not a healthcare professional, and anything that you hear on this podcast is strictly for entertainment. It is strictly just for you to hear, and anything that you resonate with that you think, "Oh my goodness, this resonates with me," or "This might be me," or "That symptom is mine," or "I'm going to try this thing." Please talk to a healthcare professional and see if that indeed, get the diagnosis from them. If you're on medications and I give any information in here about medications that I've heard, do not stop your medication without talking to a healthcare professional. So that is what I will lead with, because I don't want to be afraid to have this conversation, because I think more of these conversations need to be had about these difficult conversations, because you know what? They're not being had enough. They are sometimes, but not enough. So, here we go. So this is my favorite part. Hello, beautiful. Hi. I don't know who you are, but so if you're watching this, I say this every week, but if you're watching this, I'm streaming through StreamYard, and you need to give StreamYard permission to be able to use your name. And if you don't do that, then I don't know who you are. So if you could just put your name at the end or before your comments, then I will know who it is. But if you don't want to, that's fine. Hello. My hair is really having a moment right now, and not a good one. Ed is here. Hello from Alexander and me. Hi. Hi, boys. And Facebook user says, "I go by Mel. Howdy." Hello, Mel. Okay, so uh as always, I wanted to give a little bit of information, and I don't have a lot of information about depression. So I went and did a little bit of research. I wanted to do more because I was really fascinated with it, but I ended up being under the weather all weekend. Not that that's an excuse, but I was in bed for most of the weekend. So I didn't do as much research as I wanted to. But I will tell you what I found out. And it may be news to you, it may not be news to you, but it will give us a starting off point to be able to discuss this topic. When we talk about the topic, I do want to say that I think we use the word depression a little too loosely, which is okay. I mean, do what you want with your vocabulary. I don't care. But I think we use it so loosely, like, oh my gosh, I had a really bad day at work. I'm so depressed. Or like, oh, I'm so depressed. Like my vacation got canceled. Or I'm so depressed. A lot of people use it. And the stat that I heard, whether it's true or not, the stat that I heard is about 5% of Americans have major depression. Okay. So that's still a staggering number. That's still a big number, but it's not as big of a number as everybody that's saying it. Because I would say way more than 5% of the people in my earshot talk about depression. There's also different forms of depression. So there's bipolar depression. And so this is where you have extremes on both ends. So bi meaning two, you have like two ends where you are manic and then you are depressed. So you have major highs and then major lows. Then there's major depression, which is the one that most people are talking about. And so that is where you are experiencing really the lows, that you are no longer finding joy in the things that you used to find joy in. You're having a hard time sleeping. There's a lot of things that go into that. And you simply don't have the motivation to sometimes to do any of the things that could help get you out of it, which is then very frustrating for you, also for your loved ones around you, because, some of the things that we're going to be talking about are going to be things like exercise and things like that, that for if you're not in a depressive state, if you are not in it, and you are just watching your loved one and it is breaking your heart and you want to help them, you want to be able to say, come out for a run with me. Let's go for a walk. I know it will help you. And even though that may be true, when you are really dealing with major depression, you don't have the will to be able to go into those altered states. You're not able to go for the run. You're not able to get out of bed. So these are real states. These are real things that are happening. And the way that I have been in my life, and that's all that I can speak to is just my experience, is I never really understood it because I was like, well, why? You know what? It's just you don't have goals, or you don't have, maybe you're just not eating right, or maybe you're just like, maybe if you just did go outside and get some sunlight and walk and do all these things, it's not until you actually feel it that you're just like, I get it. I understand that that will help me, but I can't get out of bed right now. Like, you're lucky I'm talking right now. Like, you know what I mean? So I want anybody that's listening to this that has never dealt with it, or anybody that's listening to this and doesn't understand it, what I would recommend, because I want to talk to those people, the people that are on the periphery of people, the 5%. Those people, I want you to do some research. And that is not to be like, I'm not being snooty about it at all. I'm just saying, do some research to really understand what depression is and what it does to your brain and body, because it's fascinating in the little bits that I have researched. And I have a really good, and you guys know, who do you think a lot of my research came from? I'm gonna wait, and you can put it in the comments, and I want you to tell me if you know where I got a lot of my research from. But there was a really good episode that I watched, and it was 2 hours. And there is so much goodness in that. And I'm going to put it in our Facebook group. And if you are apt to listen, I highly recommend listening to it, because it will open up your mind about what depression really is, and if your loved ones are dealing with it, what that looks like for them. So Ed says a great short video that explains depression quite well is called A Black Dog Named Depression. It can be found on YouTube. Awesome, Ed. Okay, I will look that up and put that in our Facebook group too. Thank you. Shoot, I wish, darn it, I wish Mike told me that I'm going to be able to start putting videos up here like while we're streaming. I just don't really know how to do that yet. That would be so cool for me to be able to like do that with you. So maybe in future episodes I'll be able to add that multimedia aspect to it. So with one of the things that I learned about depression, and you guys, you do not have to just listen to me. You're able to just chime in. And if you have a question or if you want to share your experience, or if I say something that you're just like, I don't agree, let's have a discussion about it. Ed said it's a 4-minute video. Okay. I'll look for it and I'll put it in our Facebook group and then we can all watch it together. So one of the things that I was reading about or listening to about depression is that we actually have a um like a pleasure pain balance. It's almost like a teeter-totter. And what happens is, when you get, this is where I'm not going to use all the technical terms of, all of the different things that are happening in the brain because I don't know them all and I'm not going to pretend to know them all. But basically, this is my understanding of it. And then, you know, take it for what it is. But it's basically like there's a teeter totter. And when you experience extreme pleasure, it will also balance you out that you will end up having like a little bit of pain that will level that out so then you're more in balance. And the pain is not um it is not always like physical pain that you're going to feel, but it can also come as in the beginning just as a pain, as a craving for more of that pleasure that you had. Okay. So, just like with drugs, with sugar, with a really good feeling that you have this pleasure and then you have this pain. And what it is it's like I'm craving more of that pleasure. Okay. So you're always on this thing. Now, what the issue is that and you're looking for a dopamine hit because you're releasing dopamine and that's what's making you feel good when you have that pleasure. And now when you crave it, now you're looking for that dopamine again. But what happens is you're not going to get that same level of dopamine. And so you keep kind of craving for this pleasure, but if you're always in constant pursuit of the pleasure, every time that you get that pleasure, you're getting less and less and less dopamine. So, same thing, like that. You guys have seen that sugar, like the first time that a kid has like a popsicle or a ice cream or a cake, usually on like their first birthday, and they're just like, oh my gosh. And then you're always going to try to find that high, basically. You will never find that same high that you had that first time. And so you're constantly going into this, I need more, and then you're not getting the dopamine that you wanted. Okay. So then that's why addiction happens so quickly for a lot of people, not only with drugs, but with social media. You get that dopamine hit because somebody liked or commented on your thing. And now you're just constantly looking for that, but then you're not getting as much dopamine. So you're not getting as much pleasure. So now you're getting more of that pain and craving, and you're in that addiction. And that will put you into a depressive state um, because you can't get to those higher levels of pleasure and feeling good. And so that's the more that you hit these levels, the more you're going to feel your body is going to be depressed. Like um your dopamine is going to be depressed and so you're going to feel more depressed. That's why I don't know if you have this, but when I am in a mindless scroll on social media, I can feel everything. Now, I'm not depressed. I'm not in major depression, but I can feel those lower levels because I'm constantly looking. Now I'm understanding it. I'm constantly looking for that dopamine. I'm not getting it, and I'm constantly craving more, and it's not giving me what I'm looking for. So, um, one of the things that they say is for us to really be aware, and this is gonna like coming from like a happiness coach, like I am all for, you know, finding happiness and finding joy, being aware of having those major highs. Those can also and always be like craving that and always wanting to like be in pursuit of, you know, really happy moments and really all of this stuff. It can do a number on your system. And Ed actually, okay, so yeah, Ed has something to say because I was actually going to just stop myself and ask you because Ed is well informed about this. So he says the other important neurotransmitter in depression is serotonin, right? Helps with comfort, belonging, and connection, right? So is serotonin, when I was understanding this, that the SSRIs, is that helping you produce more serotonin? Is that what that was? I was taking in so much information, guys, that it was really difficult for me to like kind of put it all together. I feel like I need to learn this a lot more, and I'm going to, because as a happiness coach, I am all about wanting to find more joy in our life and wanting to find more happiness in our life. And I still firmly believe that there is not enough of that we need to be searching for that. And not searching outside, but searching inside to find what makes us feel content and happy and joyful. But if we're constantly in the pursuit of major uh, dopamine, major like being in love all the time and having all these major things, that will dysregulate our nervous system and that will dysregulate our dopamine, and we would actually have to kind of detox from it. We will have to detox from whatever is bringing that. That's why like social media detoxes are really important. If you find that you are just going constantly, Ed says yes. So those are the SSRI, which I want to talk about too, because those are the drugs that um, sometimes if you have depression, they will suggest those, which have in a lot of cases been really helpful. But then there's also the other end because it is a drug. There's things that are not like side effects that you have to be aware of. Some of the things that I found, and I will get to that in a second. Um, all over the place right now. I do not remember. Oh, the detoxes. So the detoxes, so then you can kind of bring yourself back down to a more normal level. Getting off of the social media and doing a 30-day cleanse of just not being on social media and not having those ding and bing and hits. Um, Sugar detox will help. I mean, that's a whole nother story because of how dangerous sugar is for your entire body. But even just for that dopamine, if you can go 30 days without it, it can help you rebalance your body. Now, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are not going to be cures for major depression. Okay. Um, However, there are so many studies that are going on right now that are new, like 5-year old new treatments that are coming out that are only 3 years, still in the experimental stages. So there is so much hope for if you have been diagnosed with major depression, there is so much hope. And if you don't get any other message from this podcast episode, I want you to have that. I want you to know, hang in there, please. Hang in there and do what you can. Be with a healthcare professional, be close to your family, be close to your friends. Come into the Friendly Show, be close with the people in Facebook, like be in community as much as you can, knowing that there is hope. There are so many new treatments that are coming out that if nothing has helped you yet, you need to keep experimenting because there is something that will be coming out or that is out there that you just don't know about yet. So here are some of the things that I do want to talk about because I want to get to our conversation back and forth because your conversation with me is my favorite part of the show. Like it is my favorite part. It's a favorite part of Facebook. It's a favorite part of everything that we do is connection and learning from one another. So, Facebook user says it was Nikki Philly. Oh, Nikki Fillier. Hello, honey. That said, hello, beautiful. Hi, Nikki. I'm so happy you're here. That is awesome. Um, so okay, so you've been here the whole time. I was gonna say if you're new here, but you're not, you said hello first as soon as I came on. So hi. So here are just a couple of the things that they have found that have actually helped um at least alleviate um some of the feelings of the depression, okay? So, cold showers have helped because cold showers spark that serotonin. I think it's the serotonin that it ends up helping, right? And I might be confusing this, and please just tell me, be like, Leanne, stop talking. um, exercise. Exercise has been told that it engages the norepinephrine. Again, I never went through science because I'm not good with all these big names, but um exercise can actually if you get I can't remember, I think the number that they gave, I mean, and play around with it and see what works for you. But even 150 to 180 minutes a week, okay? So that's like 2.5 hours a week of zone 2 cardio, which is just it's not going for a huge run that you can't breathe. It's going for a walk and being belabored a little bit that you can't carry on a full conversation, but you can have a conversation with your friend while you're walking. And 150 to 180 minutes a week can help the same way that the SSRIs help. You might need a little bit more. You might even need a little bit less, depending, but it's something worth trying to um, experiment with. Now, this is where if you are in a very major depressive, especially if you're in the depths of it, you may not have the willingness or desire or energy to be able to go on these walks. And I understand that. But if you at all can try, these can potentially help. Also, it's been proven that the exercise also EPA, so essential fatty acids that are the EPA. So there's DHA and I think it's EPA or EPA and DHA. The EPA has been proven that 1,000 to 2,000 of the EPA, if you do that daily, it can also help with as much as the SSRI pills. Okay. Now, this is why if you are on medication, you want to talk to a doctor that you're working with because it can also affect the efficacy of those pills. So you may not need as much. Don't go off of them and say, "Oh, I heard this thing that I can just have fish oil pills and then I'm good to go." You want to make sure, and I'm being super careful in telling you guys, all of this is an experiment that you want to do with a healthcare professional. Okay, even if you're healthy, you still want to just because they're natural, you still want to make sure that you're getting what you need. I've given this example before. I thought I heard that D3 was really great for you and I'm very big in the Crohn's and colitis community. And I was going to weekly meeting or monthly meetings. And one of the guys in there said that the D3 helped him extremely. And he was having 8,000, whatever it is, um, of D3 a day. And I'm healthy, but I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I thought it was water soluble and did not know that it's not. And I started taking 7,500 because I took 3 2,500 pills And I took those for 2 years and I ended up becoming toxic. You couldn't even touch my skin. It was so bad. So even if it's quote unquote natural, you still got to beware and still got to look at talking to a doctor or your pharmacist and figuring out what the levels are for you. Okay. So I just want to make this super, super clear. But what's exciting is these studies that have come out that is showing that there are these things that can help. So the fish oil pills, making sure that you have 1 to 2,000 of the EPA, that ingredient that's inside of there, that can help. Exercise and not like full on, but 180 zone 2 cardio a week, that can help. Ingesting 2 to 4 servings of fermented foods, that can help because that can regulate your gut biome, your microbiome inside of your gut, um, which helps with inflammation, which inflammation is tied to depression. Everything works together. So, and then there has been studies now for the nutrition portion of it. Um, there have been studies that certain people, this has helped. It doesn't help with everybody, but it can potentially help if you go in a keto diet. So going into ketosis can help with your depression. So that is something that you would want to talk to your doctor or your um, therapist or your psychiatrist. They may be able to help you with all of these pieces and how they kind of work and interchange. Um, that's not to say that any of this is going to, like I said, cure major depression. But it is good that all of us can be using and it can be helping us increase our levels of just feeling good. There's also seasonal affective disorder, which is a form of depression. Where I don't know if it affects you, but that's usually in the winter months when you're not getting the sunlight. I was just talking to one of my girlfriends, the one that I walk with all the time, and her and I are extremely affected by it. And so I got a light therapy light that I use every day. And that's how I wake up in the morning. And I'm telling you, I have seen a big difference in that and getting out and getting the sunlight. Because even though in the winter we get these blah months and they're months and months, my I don't think I have I know I don't have major depression. I don't have clinical depression, but I go through depressive bouts. And I think I am affected by the seasonal affective disorder. And so that's why I have that light therapy. So these are all things that we can be doing to play around with it and see how we can adjust our levels and just feel a little bit more hopeful. And that's what one of the things that you really want to be looking at is you want to be trying to figure out how to have hope. Because that's one of the scary things with major depression is that you lose hope and you lose the love of life. You lose even the taste. You can't taste foods the same way. You can't smell foods the same way. Like your whole body is depressed. Your senses, everything is depressed. And so it's not your fault. There's things that are happening inside of your body that are making this happen. But getting on the right medication with your doctor and doing all of these extra little things can help alleviate the symptoms. And some of the I'm not even going to get into some of the experimental work that they're doing right now with different drugs, and drugs that used to be recreational drugs, kind of like illegal drugs that now they're bringing in and using them for to help. It's fascinating and really, really exciting. So, that is just some of the things which I find really, really exciting that there's um, things that we're able to um, help. you know? I don't know what the level is of where you're at, when you can start, um, getting certain drugs for your depression or for whatever you're feeling. Um, but I don't know that I'm really agreeing with, um I don't know how to say this. I don't know that I'm really agreeing with some of the stats that are out there that people say, if you are grieving a loss. I just heard this. A friend of mine was telling me, she said, they say that if you are grieving a loss of a loved one for more than 6 weeks, then you should be looking into whether or not you're depressed because you're going through major depression. And when she told me that, I was like, okay, if you lose somebody in your life and you don't have the tools to be able to move through grief, okay? So like you're just trying to do it on your own. Let's say that you're a mom, you've got kids, you're working, you're doing all the things and you lose your own parent. But you're still trying to like keep up with the kids and with your job and with your husband and with, PTA and doing all these things and you're still trying to process grief. My guess is that it's going to take you longer than 6 weeks to process this grief. And I don't think that that means that you're in major depression. I think that means, and again, I'm just your friend. I'm not a therapist and I'm not a healthcare professional. But what I don't like is when they're making people feel like something's wrong with them, like you've got to get on medication. I'm all for medication. I really, really am. But I don't want you to go and feel like you're depressed because depressed, it makes it feel like it's hopeless. It makes it feel because there is that stigma. I'm not putting the stigma on there. I don't I don't believe that, depression is a um like a hopeless kind of thing. I think we can move in and out of it um but people when you define yourself as being depressed, it does feel hopeless. And especially if you have a death, then it's like, well, how am I ever going to get out of this? Because they're never going to come back and I'm never going to be okay. But that's not true. We have to find tools and find ways of becoming okay with living our life in tandem with feeling the grief of losing somebody or losing a pet. And I know that if you're not a pet lover, then you're going to be like, don't you dare compare that to the love loss of a family member. But if you're a pet person, you understand that that also is a big grief. And then other people won't understand it. So then you feel like something's wrong with you. Losing a job, um, just having where you're not feeling good enough, you're not feeling worthy. All of these things, these states, they say that we are not our emotions, right? We are not our emotions. But they were talking about this in the podcast episode, the 2 hour, and it was such a good podcast. But he even made the correlation that, yes, we are not our emotions. However, we are very much feeling our emotions and we are very much a part of that experience of those emotions. So to say that we're not those emotions is really shitty to say to somebody that is experiencing depression on any level, affective, seasonal affective disorder, major depression, bipolar depression, even if you're just feeling depressed and you haven't had any kind of clinical term, that is a really shitty, hard thing to say to somebody. And I understand because I've probably said it before because you come from a good place that you want to say the right thing to like make them realize that no, this isn't you. Like you're going to be okay and you can come out the other side and all that. And sometimes you just need to be like, yeah, I get what you're going through. Or I don't get what you're going through. Tell me about it. You know? I think we need to have more conversation about it. I think we need to have less shame around these feelings. Growing up, I never saw my mom cry really. I saw her cry for things that made sense to cry, but I never saw her really get frustrated about anything, or I never really saw her. She was just like this super woman. Like, and she still is. Like, I just don't know how she how she handles the things she does with the grace she does. It's phenomenal. Um but I had a really hard time because I did not have that. I felt those emotions, and I felt, fear, and I was scared, and I was sad, and I was all these things. And I felt weird because, like, here's my mom, and she's being able to do all these things, and she's not going through half of the feelings that I'm going through, and I'm not going through half of the actual stuff she's going through. And it wasn't until I think I was early 30s that I finally, like, had a conversation with my mom and was like, I'm not never going to measure up to who you were, because I have too much of these feelings." And then we had a really big heart to heart because I had a breakdown. Like, I was having such a hard time with it. And that's when she told me, she's like, "Lee, I have those feelings that you have. I just didn't share them with you guys when you guys were kids because I didn't want you guys to feel bad, and doing all the things that a good, quote unquote, good mom would do." And she had no idea that I was holding it, that I wasn't feeling like I could measure up. So I think that's another reason why we have to have these conversations of normalizing feeling bad, normalizing feeling sad, normalizing not feeling good enough, and not normalizing it to the point of accepting it and letting it be, but normalizing it that we all have those, and we all need to figure out tools to get to the other side together. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if this is making sense, because I feel like I'm losing people because nobody's talking in the comments, and normally I have people that are like giving all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to kind of slow down right now and stop talking ish, so then you guys can share your experiences or what you think about what I've said. Um, I know that it's a very sensitive topic, um, but I think that it's really something that we should be talking about, and we should be making it okay that, I cry, and I sometimes cry for what seems to be no reason. Um, and I'm learning that I need to be asking myself more questions, and I need to be going back to my journaling. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was doing really, really well when he was journaling. And by really, really well just meant that he was able to move through his feelings differently. And then he was feeling so good. I always relate it to, like, my dieting. I've been on every single diet known to man, and anytime that I lose the weight that I wanted to lose or got close, I started feeling good, and then I felt like, "Oh, I don't need to, like, watch anything anymore. Now I can eat anything that I want." And you lose all of the good habits that you've created because you think, "Oh, I don't need it anymore." And really, the reason why we're at that point is because we created all of these good habits. Journaling for him and journaling for me is one of those good habits that it's easy to get out of once you're starting to feel good. When I was growing up, I didn't realize. So, do you remember when we were kids, we called them diaries, we didn't call them journals. Um, I mean, maybe you did, but in my circle, they were diaries. And you would write in your diary. And I kept all my diaries. And when I was in my late 20s, I looked back at them because I was, like, going through this purging place in my life that I was, like, wanting to get rid of everything. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I got so much crap here. Let me just get rid of it." And I went through all of them, and I would say 90% of the journal entries were all when I was feeling down. I very rarely went in there and felt like I needed to talk when I was feeling good, when I was excited about something, because I was sharing that with everybody around me. But when I was sad, or frustrated or overwhelmed or angry, I didn't feel like I could share that with people because that wasn't really, what you do. Everybody around me seemed happy, so I didn't share that. So I would share it with my diary. and I had books and books and books of, you know, episodes of, 2, 3, 4, 5 entries day after day after day. And then I started feeling better. So the journaling was helping and whatever else was helping. And then I would not write in the journal for a month or 2 or 3 or 4. And then I would come back and it would be the same thing. And 4, 5, 6 days, a week, 2 weeks, and then nothing because I would only go in there. And so intuitively as a child, I knew that writing would help me. And so now as an adult, I also know writing helps me, but I don't do it when I'm in my good span. And I want to start getting back that's a habitual habit that I do every day because then I'll be able to not catch the bad or when I'm feeling sad because I want to be able to experience those things, but I'll be able to experience all of the feelings more. Um okay, so this is Nikki. She says, "I'm just listening and I would love to have a one-on-one combo with you to help me get through my rough patch. Some of the things you're talking about relate to me." Yes, that's why I think these conversations in here are really, really good. Um, and being able to share them, and I know this feels public. Technically, it is public, right? The good news is that I don't have a big following yet. So there's not a whole lot of people, but I'm going to tell you the people that are going to follow the Friendly Show and that are going to be reading your comments and that are going to be reading like what I'm doing and what we're all doing, we're all the same. There's nobody that is going to be coming to this show and listening to me talk the way that I talk that is snooty, that is thinks they're better than themselves because in a minute they're going to be like, "Who is she? Oh, I can do so much better. I'm going to go and listen to another podcast." They're going to go, and that is totally okay. And I'm not saying that to like berate me or to bring me down. I know who I am, and they're not going to be here. I know because every conversation that I have inside of this group with you guys are all my people. You guys are all sweet souls that we're just trying to get through this together. So, Nikki, if you want to be sharing, I want you to share because and in the Facebook group I keep it private. Um it's becoming a little bit bigger, but again, it's only the people that are there that are wanting the same thing from all of us, you know? So it's a very I wouldn't allow anybody in my house that would make other people feel bad, and I'm going to do the same thing with the Facebook group. I obviously can't help it here in an open. Oh, you're just correcting yourself. You're so cute. One-on-one combo. See how I didn't even catch it. I was like, "Combo? Okay. Well, yeah, we can we can do it as a talk and listen. That's a combo." Um, so yeah. So I really do want this to be somewhere that we can be sharing back and forth because I do offer, the one-on-one and the coaching and all of that. Um, and obviously that time I do get paid for it. Um, but that's why I wanna open this up because I don't want this to be a place that if like, up until this point, we've done 15 episodes. I've done how many episodes on First Day Pod? I never talk about what I have to offer with that kind of stuff because I want this just to be a very safe place to be able to have those conversations for free. The Facebook group is free, always will be free. Um I want those 2 places, the podcast and wherever we stream it to, and the Facebook to always be free, you know? Um, so, if you want something more, then you know how to find me and you know that I will be there, but I want you to be able to do that here, and I want you to be able to do that in the Facebook group. Um, and there is a piece of with depression, with all the feelings that we're feeling just like with manifestation to gain abundance, just like when you're dieting, just like when you're doing anything, the more you focus on something, the more you create, right? So the more if we and we talked about this maybe in the chronic pain one, um, when we put I am before something. Okay. So when we say, like, I am, I am in chronic pain, I am chronic pain, I will always be chronic pain. And chronic pain, fill in the blank for whatever that is for you or for me. Um, when we label ourselves and we keep talking about it, there comes a time that, like, talking about it is therapeutic, right? Getting it out there, knowing that we're not alone, having those conversations back and forth, those are all really good. Um, unless you're in the story too much. And if you're in the story that you're labeling yourself and you're feeling that this is who I am and you're identifying with it, and that is a part of your identity, that's when it becomes a little bit detrimental, because you're not going to want to get out of that story because your brain and your ego wants to protect your identity. Whatever you say that you are, it wants to protect it, and it wants to make sure that it will do everything in its power to be congruent with what you believe. That's truth. That's just the way that it is. So talking about it to get over it and finding the tools, the only way that you'll find the tools is by acknowledging what we're going through, right? Having these conversations, um, and then being able to share in these groups, by saying, we've had people say, "Oh, you know what? Britt was talking about it last week," and I was about to say yesterday because I feel like these like fly by. But he was saying that he needs, a recliner day after he's really had one of his really good days with his pain or with his sleep, that he does a lot. He needs to have that. And that's something that is a lived experience that he helps him. And so then other people will be able to hear that and be like, "Oh yeah, okay. So I need to just give myself grace when I'm having the day that I'm, on the back end of my good day. I need to give myself grace instead of beating myself up. Britt did it. It helps him. I'm going to try it." And that's how we do it. But if you stick to that story, then um, it's going to be very hard to get out of it. So I just want to make sure that we're always looking for tools to help alleviate the feelings that we're not enjoying, if that makes sense, you know? Um, Yeah, I feel very strange being a Wednesday night and not having a ton of conversation. I thought this was gonna be a very lively like the other days, um, but that's okay. It really is. It's totally okay, and we're also at 47 minutes, so clearly I had an okay time talking. Um, and I wanna know, like, what you guys want for future episodes. Um, and sometimes if I have something that I really want to talk about, then I will say, "Okay, well, we'll do that in 2 weeks because next week I really want to talk about such and such." Um, but if you guys ever have anything that you really want to kind of like just talk about, then we can do that. And I think I am going to start bringing back um once Mike kind of teaches me how to do the actual podcasting and putting it all out there. He said it's really easy. So once I know how to do that, I think I'm going to start doing a little bit more of mini podcast episodes on the actual audio. So if you're listening to this in the audio version and you're like, "Man, it goes back and forth." I am going to start doing episodes that are strictly for the audio. And then keeping the Wednesday nights for our conversation. Sam is here. Hi, honey. Okay. So Sam says, depression is such a prevalent occurrence today. I have struggled with it most of my life. I have had to go through a lot of healing through counseling and seeking spiritual mentors. I've learned what my default response is when I begin to spiral into depression. There are thoughts of suicide or feeling worthless. And I know now I can completely disregard them. They are an attack from the enemy and a distraction from the true problem I'm facing. Okay. I'm going to just reread that. I've learned what my default response is when I begin to spiral into a depression. They are thoughts of suicide and feeling worthless. And I know that now I can completely disregard them. They are an attack. Yes. Okay. So that is, thank you so much, Sam, for sharing. And I can't wait to get you on the show. Um, we've got a couple of you guys. Like, I just can't wait to do that. And that will be coming. We're going to either do that, I think it probably in April, obviously not the first week of April, because that's already this weekend, which I don't know where the time went. Um, but that is really good. And so that part about, feeling worthless and having thoughts of suicide. Um, I think that happens potentially more than people are talking about. Um, I know that when you go through major depression and you do have suicidal ideation, and I don't know if having this conversation on YouTube, if it's going to ban me or Facebook or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. So we'll see what stays and what goes. Um, but, I do know I've got dear friends that have dealt with it, that they have attempted suicide. Um, I personally have never attempted suicide, but I will tell you, I have thought about it. And I've been thinking about it a lot. Well, I haven't been thinking about it a lot recently. I've been thinking about me thinking about it recently. And what I realized is that I even had those episodes when I was a kid. When I was going through those journals, I was having where it would just be life would be easier if I wasn't here. Um, I remember I would get so frustrated and so just sad and just hopeless. Like I just didn't even know. And I came from I'm very lucky, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this so that if you've had a similar experience, you know that it's normal. I had a really good upbringing. My parents are still together. They've been married over 50 years. Um, I I had everything that I needed. I had all the love. I had all of the support. I had all of the things. So on paper, to have these kinds of feelings doesn't seem right, but what it is it's the human experience that we have hormones are changing. We don't know how to handle certain messaging that comes in as children. There's so many things, and I didn't realize that it was depression, or I didn't realize that it was weird, but and then when I started driving, there were moments that I was driving, and if I was by myself and really, because I would go driving when I was not happy, um, because I wanted to clear the air and it felt good, and I would put the windows down and I would just try to get out of where I was, and there were times that I was like, "If I just kept going straight right now, instead of taking that curve, it could look like an accident." And those feelings and those thoughts go through your brain. Um, Now, if you say that, then people get scared, like, oh my gosh, like, we've got to bring her to the hospital. And sometimes, and again, disclaimer, 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 disclaimer. I'm not a therapist. I'm just your friend in the living room. Like, I just need to bring that home because some of the things that I'm saying are probably not accurate. They're just from my experience. Um, but I feel like there's also that stigma that, like, oh my gosh, I would never talk about ever having those thoughts. Where I think if you start talking about it, people will say, yeah, I've had that thought too. Yeah, I think life sometimes when I'm in that depth of that worthlessness, that you feel like, yeah, life would probably just be easier for everyone around me if I wasn't here. Now that's very different than actually being in the state and taking the action. Obviously, those are two very different things. Um, but I don't think one necessarily is an indication that you're going to move to the next one. Um, so I want to have these conversations. So Sam, thank you so much for bringing this up. And she said, I think suicidal ideations are common too. That's why I wanted to share. It's scary to share, and I also think it needs to be said. Absolutely. She says, "Oh my gosh, I had those thoughts too." Right? And it's interesting how, like, you can justify it, like Um, so now, again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the difference is between why did I make those turns? Why did I continue on the path of the road instead of going straight? Um, there's a lot around it. One, I did not have major depression, right? I did not have the chemical imbalance inside of my brain that would allow me to get to the point where, all of my dopamine is strapped. Like, so that's one of the benefits is that I was not in that crisis mode and I had those feelings. Um, so I also don't want you to negate if you're having those thoughts and those feelings, talk to somebody. And at that point, that's not talking to people in the Facebook group. That's not talking to people here. It's fine to talk to somebody here, you know, but that's not where to do it for your final answer. You want to go to a healthcare professional. You want to talk to a therapist. Um, and there's crisis lines that you can talk to people on the phone that are know how to not how to, but they're educated in this to give better responses than I ever will be able to, and to be able to help you. The one big thing is that I don't want anybody, and I know that people are dying every day of suicide. I understand it. I get it. But I really want, if you're going to listen to this episode, I want you to be able to feel more open like Sam did to share that. Um, because there should be no shame around these feelings, you know? And I consider myself a very happy person with very human feelings where I feel anxiety and I feel overwhelmed quite a lot, where I feel stressed more than I was even aware for many years, where I feel sad and I feel like I don't know how I feel. Um, so I think we all just need to, like Sam said, have those conversations so then we don't feel alone and we understand um, that these are normal. Nikki says, I don't have suicidal thoughts as I am afraid to die and I don't want my loved ones to go on with their lives without me. Okay. Well, that's great. That's that's fabulous. Um when I say it's fabulous, I mean like it's nice that you don't have those feelings because those feelings can be scary. Um because I don't know what I'm feeling when I'm feeling them. Like when I have those ideas or when I have those, and sometimes they're just flashes. Sometimes I will say when I have those, sometimes I'm not even sad. Sometimes I'm just like probably just overwhelmed would be my guess, or I'm fatigued, or I'm just exhausted with what's going on with my life or whatever, that I'm just like, man, I could just do that. And it's like a flash. Sometimes it's a thought, but sometimes it's just a flash. And that's why I think that a lot of them are very normal to have. But if you haven't had that, Nick, then that's nice. Um however, the part when you said you're afraid to die, that's also something. Mike struggles with that a lot. And I don't know how to handle this. Like um I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that okay, so I've got to think about how to say this, but I do know that if you're afraid, truly afraid to die, that can also manifest in ways that are not conducive to fully living your life. Um so I also think, and this is not a religious podcast, and I don't ever want to make it sound like it is, but I am a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person and I believe in God and I also believe in heaven. And so just like I say I do cold showers and I don't expect anybody else to jump in a cold shower in the morning, I believe in God and I am very fine with talking about it, but I don't need you to believe in God to be a part of the show. However, I will say that um believing in something bigger than yourself, and Nikki, I'm not talking just to you because I believe you are as well, but maybe you're not. Um, but I do think that that's a piece that should be explored, um, because to me, it's hard to believe in something bigger than us, to believe that there is a heaven, and to believe that there is something more, and also be afraid of going there. So, that I would be really curious about that piece of it. Um, because I don't want to die, but I am definitely not afraid of dying. I know that when I die, I will be meeting up with all of the family, all of the friends, all of the puppies that I have lost, and that gives me peace around losing them. Um, I still grieve a lot of my losses, but I don't grieve it in a way that um it's debilitating for me because I know that I will see them again. Um, so I'd be curious about when you say that you're afraid to die, what more is around there? Or is it a motherly thing that you just don't want to leave your family? My mom feels that way. My mom's very religious and knows that she's going to see her parents again and she's going to see her brother, and she knows that, and so she's not afraid to die, but she is afraid of leaving us. And so both of those can also be true, you know? Um, Nikki says, I believe in God, but he took my dad at a young age and other family. It's hard. That's so hard. So hard. Um, and Nikki, I'm assuming that was you. Um, yeah, that's really hard. And I also don't have the answer of how that makes sense. And the answer that always comes from my heart is that, everything, there was a reason, um, even if we don't understand what it is. And I'm sure Sam's a woman of God. She probably has a better answer for that. But it's really, those are the things that are hard. War is hard. Um, Sickness is hard. To believe in God and then to believe that these things can also happen. Um, and then, there's free will, there's all of these things, that it just makes it hard. That's another conversation that's difficult to have, but I think it's good to have those conversations and to try to understand it. Um, Sometimes I believe that we're not gonna understand everything and we're not meant to. Um, we were we were having a conversation, a group of my friends, and, we were talking about, um, well, some things, and one of the things that came up was that if we're not willing to hear the answers, we need to stop having the questions. Like if we don't want to find out the answers, or if we know that we can't find out the answer, then we need to give ourselves grace and give up on asking the questions. Um and sometimes that's the only way of moving forward, is just believing that, okay, you know what, I'm not meant to know this answer, and not trying to make sense of it. But then also giving yourself ability to be able to stop asking the question, or asking yourself the question. Um, and then Nikki says, sorry to change your live subject. Woman, that's what happens. Okay. If you were in my living room or if you were on a walk with me, then at the end of an hour, which has been an hour, so I am going to wrap up, and not because you said that, but because I really do want to keep these to an hour, and this one flew by. Um, but if you're on a walk with me or if you're in my living room, you know that like we can be coming for one reason and within that hour we've gone through like four or five subjects. Um so sometimes you'll realize that, like, even with this on the Wednesday night, sometimes it'll just be a live chat, and whatever we're feeling, we'll just have a conversation around. But I do like to have topics just to start the conversation. And then wherever it ends up landing, that's where it lands, you know? So I thank you for bringing that up. Um, And I think that's going to be the magical part about these conversations, is that it's going to be, we're going to think we're going to talk at this one thing, and then we're just going to keep evolving and having more conversations. And it's going to prove and show just how much we all have on our heart that we need to be having conversations about. Depression sounds like it's that taboo thing that no, we shouldn't be talking about. But so is chronic pain, so is money, so is fear, so is all these things. That's like, no, I'm strong, no, I'm happy, I'm and these labels that we're giving ourselves, like I said, about labels that are going to stifle us, by like saying I am fibromyalgia, I am this, that stifles us. Believe it or not, labeling yourself as a positive thing also stifles you, because labeling yourself as, I am a happy person. um I mean, I use it because I do believe that I'm a happy person, but I also know that the truth of that means that the only way that I know that I'm a happy person is that I also experience sadness, because otherwise how would I know that I'm happy, right? So being able to have that duality, that's good if you're able to be able to do that. But if you're not, and you stick your flag in the sand, or whatever the saying is, I mess up sayings all the time, by the way. If you do that on I'm happy, then when you're feeling sad, that's not congruent with your identity. And then um you're going to berate yourself for having those feelings, for having the sadness, which is going to make you focus on, why am I feeling sad? Oh my gosh, I'm a happy person. I shouldn't be feeling sad. And then you are going to fixate on that, which is going to make you even more sad and even more depressed and even more anxious and even more all this kind of stuff. So labels in general, I've been saying this for years on the podcast, not this one, but even on the past one. Labels are just, they're not worth it. We need to sometimes use it so then we can have these conversations. If I didn't have the label of depression and put it on the title, then nobody would know what we were about to talk about. Um, but I don't think labels, or at least identifying with labels for ourselves, is any good. So anyway, that was another tangent. I love you guys. I am going to wrap up there because now we're an hour and 7 minutes in. So let me know what you guys want to talk about next week. Let me know in the Facebook group, and then we will talk about that next week. And if you're not a part of the Facebook group, come on over there. You're able to share whatever you want. It's an open group. I try to come on. I haven't been on there the last week because I've been so sick, but I will be back to it tomorrow. And I try to share every day just a little bit of something, at least to say hi. So I love you guys. Big hugs. Thank you for everybody that was watching. Thank you for everybody that was a part of it. Nikki, Sam, Ed, Alexander. And if you're watching this in the replay, thank you so much for being here. And I really hope that you took part in it, in the comments, even though it was a replay. And I will reply to you as soon as I get the notification. Love you. Bye.